Hello everyone, this is Gautam from Shailaja IS. Hope you all are doing well. The issue that we will be discussing right now is your Pax Silica Alliance, right? And why it was in news? Because India has officially joined on 20th February 2026. So India made its official strategic entry into this alliance on 20th February 2026. Okay? So in this video, we'll try and understand what is this alliance all about, who is heading this alliance, what is the objective of this alliance. Second, we'll try and understand why it is necessary for India to join the alliance. So what are the benefits that India is getting by joining the alliance. Third, we'll try and understand why it is necessary for the alliance to have India as its member. In a sense, what are the benefits that India is giving to the alliance itself, right? And lastly, we'll look into the risk or the challenges with regard to India joining this alliance. So what are the trade-offs or what are the possible risks that are associated by with joining this alliance? Okay. So first and foremost thing, you need to now understand the current technological race that we are in. I think most of you all might be knowing the rapid advancement of your artificial intelligence. So we are at the cusp of your fourth industrial revolution, right? The first industrial revolution was driven by your steam power. The second industrial revolution was driven by your electric power. The third industrial revolution was driven by your electronic power. First industrial revolution, it was your UK which was at the leading forefront of it. The second and third industrial revolution, somehow it was the US which was leading the technological race or the industrial revolution race. The fourth industrial revolution is going to be based on your artificial intelligence. It is going to be based on machine learning. So it is like Internet of Things, okay, where your hardware and software are going to come together, and it is going to power this entire new industrial revolution. And at the top of the deployment part of it is your intelligence, is about your algorithms, is about your human intelligence. But in order to run this intelligence, you need to have infrastructure like your chips, semiconductor chips, or your data centers. In order to manufacture the semiconductor chips or establish huge data centers which runs this algorithms, which runs this artificial intelligence, you need to get access to its basic resources, which is your silica or rare earth minerals. Right now, US is having control on this AI, the front end part of it, or the development or the intelligence part of it. It is also somehow having control on the semiconductor manufacturing part of it through its NVIDIA company, which is located in your USA. But where it is not having its complete control is the resource extraction and resource refining part of it. Right now, all these rare earth minerals, 85% of the refining is in the hands or the control of China. So that is the basic. See, only if you have access to this rare earth minerals or your silica, you will be in a position to manufacture semiconductor chips. And it's also not an easy task. It requires its own sophisticated engineering expertise, right? And there are only few semiconductor manufacturing units across the world. Hardly around 4 or 5 big companies which operate at an industrial scale. And it requires billions of dollars to set up this semiconductor manufacturing unit. It's not like you set up today. It requires around 10 to 15 billion dollars. Requires around 2 to 3 years to just set up, and by that time the entire manufacturing process would have innovated, or it would have progressed to a great extent. So there is a complexity associated with manufacturing your semiconductor chips also. But the greater challenge is with regard to the extraction of your rare earth minerals, which is the raw resource, and refining it and giving it as a product to manufacture your semiconductor chips. Right now, this critical minerals or rare earth minerals, which is spread across the world, but also concentrated heavily in China, the refining capacity, the refining capability is being controlled by China. That 85% of the refining of these critical minerals is with China. For example, To give you a analogy, oil is present even in India, Saudi Arabia, US, everywhere. But everyone has their own capacity to refine this oil. So if I extract oil from Assam, if I extract oil from Bombay High, we are having sufficient technological capability to refine it and distill it and get it into petrol or diesel or aviation turbine fuel. Right now, with regard to the critical minerals, even though it is present in pockets of Odisha, it is present in pockets of your Kashmir, but we don't have the technological expertise to extract it in an economic, efficient manner and use it for, you can say, manufacturing of your semiconductor chips. We are not having that expertise, and that expertise is not present with other countries as well. 85% of the refining is happening only in China. Now, why did world come to this position? Because China initially was offering low labor cost. It was offering conducive policies for industries to set up, and every country felt that rather than establishing it in our country, let us establish it in China, because China was open for establishment of all these manufacturing units. So it became the factory of the world. So in that process, it also became the factory or the refiner of critical minerals. And this critical minerals is now playing a very, very critical role, right? So that is the entire objective. This Pax Silica. Silica, as you know, is clearly reflecting the silicon material, the silicon element, which forms the base of your semiconductor chips. So it is a US-led coalition of securing supply chain from mining to algorithm. So this alliance is not only going to determine, or it is not only going to have a secure supply chain of resources like silica, it is also going to have control of security with regard to manufacturing of chips and AI deployment. So it is not limiting itself to just procurement of raw material, procurement of your rare earth minerals, procurement of silica. No, it is also determining the standards in which how it has to be processed, the standards in which semiconductor chips needs to be manufactured, and the standards in which AI needs to be deployed. So it is much more than a supply chain of mineral resources. It is trying to control the entire cycle itself, right? Now, overall, it's presently the members. You are having USA, UK, Netherlands, Greece, Israel, Qatar, UAE. You are having India, Singapore, Australia, South Korea, and Japan. Right now, only these are the members. But in the coming days, in the coming months, we are sure that it is going to expand its membership, right? Again, clearly notice that China is not a part of it. And it is intentionally left out because the alliance itself is, you can say, established as a counter to the Chinese dominance, right? So the mission is beyond the trade itself. The mission is beyond securing your critical mineral resources. It wants to set global AI standards through this alliance. It wants to have a trusted ecosystem framework. Only if you're getting certified with regard to fulfilling of certain parameters, you'll become a part of this alliance. You'll become a part of this supply chain network, right? And finally, it is going to also dominate or determine the governance with regard to the technology aspect itself. So it's trying to create a closed loop system whereby if you are a member of it, you have to follow certain rules. Only if you follow certain rules, you will be able to get access to the resources, the technology, the deployment, and other things. So it is a securing of your mineral resources. It is trying to disseminate the technology also, but at the same time, it is determining how this technology needs to be utilized, right? So the governance aspect is also deeply integrated with this alliance. Okay, so with this itself, you would have understood what is the character of this alliance. It is not merely coming together of the nations in order to get access to the basic fundamental resource of silicon or raw minerals. No, it is a full stack alliance which is determining your rules, which is determining your standards, which is determining your deployment, right? Now, why is it necessary for India to join this alliance? Why did India became a member of this alliance? First and foremost thing is because India itself does not have the semiconductor manufacturing capability. Okay, entirely it is dependent on foreign imports. Okay, so it has gone in partnership with NVIDIA in order to procure all these GPUs in order to, you can say, process or you can say train on this AI models and other things. Okay, so semiconductor manufacturing capacity itself is almost nil. So by getting access to this, by being a member of this alliance, India hopes that it can revamp its domestic manufacturing capability, because ultimately what is going to happen is that the alliance is going to determine where the factories can be set up, and India is hoping that the alliance will choose India is as a place for setting up of all this semiconductor manufacturing units. So India hopes that since I am not having my domestic capability, by becoming a part of this alliance, there is a high possibility that these semiconductor manufacturing industries will be set up in India. Right. So that's the primary argument, because 80% of the minerals that uh, we are processing is dependent on imports. Right. So there is a high external dependence, and there is also a specifically external dependence. It's not like it is dependent on multiple countries. For example, India is heavily dependent on oil, but it is not only dependent on your Saudi Arabia or only dependent on Qatar. No, it is dependent on many other countries. Like it is dependent on Iran, it is dependent on Russia, it is dependent on US, it is dependent on Venezuela. So all other countries are sending their oil to India. So India is having multiple vendors in order to procure oil. The dependency itself is a risk, but at least in the case of oil, it is not dependent on one member. The situation with your critical minerals or rare earth minerals or your silica is not only India dependent on external sources, it is dependent on only one source, that is your China. So because China is controlling 85% of the refining of your rare earth minerals. So India wants to cut down with this, you can say, dependence, because China always can use this dependence in order to achieve its measures. For example, tomorrow, China launches a war with India on the Arunachal Pradesh front. It says that Arunachal Pradesh is a southern part of Tibet, and India is illegally occupying it, so it needs to be annexed back to Tibet. That is the argument which has been put forth by China. And if India sits at a negotiation table, if it is able to see, when two big powers are fighting, no one is going to win. That is for sure. Everyone knows this. But China will use this dependence as a risk, as a negotiation tool. It is going to say that if you don't allow me, it can say that in exchange for me allowing for you to occupy your Arunachal Pradesh, please pay me a premium price on all the critical minerals that you are going to get from China. Or it will say, if you don't allow me the Arunachal Pradesh to be annexed, I will not supply you the critical minerals. And it is a life in right now, the coming economy, it is going to be increasingly necessary for India to have access to all these critical minerals. Okay, and by being dependent on China, who is a tough neighbor, on whom we are having territorial disputes, on whom we are fighting for dominance in the subcontinent, India is in a bad position. So it wants to reduce this dependence on the China itself, on those critical minerals which are going to play a foundational role in the next industrial revolution, right? And your Pax Silica, you're going to get secure access to all these minerals, but it is also going to be diversified. So that is one of the important arguments for India trying to join this alliance. Another important factor is that it is going to get access to your AI infrastructure, be it your data centers. India is going to get an official entry into the global value chain. Right now, India was outside this entire global value chain itself. So the entire processing, refining, distribution, all of this, India was not a dominant player. Now through this alliance, India is going to have a structured entry point into this entire global value chain, right? And more importantly, since it is also involving your governance aspect of it, the rule setting aspect of it, India can play a decisive role in the direction in which this AI governance is going to take. So it can be a part of the negotiating table, and can tell we need to have such and such kind of a basic framework in order to steer the AI deployment. I think the recent AI Impact Summit, I think I made an exclusive video on it. India gave a framework called as a Manav framework. So through such kind of frameworks, India can determine the governance aspect of this entire technological development that is happening. Okay? So these are all some of the arguments which are put forward as the benefits that India will get by joining the alliance. There is also another side that alliance needs India as importantly as India needs alliance. Why alliance wants India to be a member? What are the value that India is bringing to the alliance? First and foremost thing is the alliance might be having good resources extraction capability, might be having good the technology yet, but where is it going to deploy? Where is the huge demand? That is your India, because India is a country, huge market of 1.5 billion population. So if you want to deploy all these products, you need a huge market, because China is not the product market anywhere. It is excluding China. So you need another huge market, which is India, which is a democratic country, right? So that is one of the biggest advantages. It provides a huge market. Second thing, India every year it produces 1.5 million of engineering graduates, which is a ready-made talent pool who can go and work in this entire supply chain ecosystem to keep it running. Okay, so there is market, there is scale, and there is also your talent that is easily available with the India, and that is why Alliance wants India to be a part of its network. Okay, second is now that they are trying to relocate all these manufacturing units away from China, it also needs a market where the labor is at a cheaper rate, and India provides that cheap labor part of it, right? That is also one effective, I can say, aspect of India being a member of the alliance, right? And finally, we are also having some strategic geological assets, because recently we have seen that lithium reserves have been found in Jammu and Kashmir, and rare earth minerals have been found in Odisha and Chota Nagpur plateau. And if the alliance is having technology, we can effectively extract these resources and be used to secure this entire supply chain, right? So and more importantly, by having India as a member, it can act as an effective bridge between your West and your global South. Because if a global South like Africa, if Western countries are going to push their products, they might always view it in a suspicious manner, because West is always viewed from an imperialist angle, right? So, but if you have India as its member, and if India says that this technology is beneficial for you, then global South acceptability is going to be high, because the credibility of India is high, because it has always been a voice of global South. It has always stood for the interests of the global South. And if a big voice of the global South is a part of the member, then it becomes easy for the alliance to take more members on its board or more members in its alliance group, right? So more or less like during the Cold War era, there were your blocks, military blocks. Somehow I feel that all this alliance is slowly turning into this technological blocks. If you're a part of this block, you're going to get access to it. If you're not a part of this block, if you're not going to be following our rules, guidelines, those things, you'll not be a part of this entire technological stack itself, right? Now, what are the risks that are associated with India joining the group? First and foremost thing is that there can be an immediate retaliation with China. China is always going to say that you're going to be a part of the alliance, right? So China is not going to sit quiet. China is also going to fight back. China might say, and will most probably say, that since you're going to be a part, so you guys develop on your own. For the short run, we might face some sort of a friction or disruption with regard to getting access to some of these critical minerals or semiconductor chips, right? Because Taiwan, which is a part of your China, is one of the dominant player with regard to your semiconductor manufacturing, right? So there can be a short-term retaliation from the China. China might create tensions across the border also, in order to send a message that you players don't be a part of the alliance, right? Because that happened in 2007 when India was trying to form a quadrilateral group of India, USA, Australia, and Japan, which is a grouping of your democratic nations. And China said that we are not happy with this group because this group is encircling your China. And as a result of it, it did not take shape for next 1.5 decades. It was only after 10-15 years, Quad as a grouping came together, right? So China is not again going to sit quiet when this alliance is taking shape. See, alliance was officially announced in December 2025 by President Donald Trump. India joined in February. So after nearly 2 months, India joined this particular alliance. And China is not going to sit quiet. Another important risk that we are going to face by joining this alliance is that are we losing our autonomy with regard to how the technological development has to be steered? Are we losing that autonomy to a broader alliance? Are we following the dictates of the alliance, which may or may not suit our own national interest? So you might be a part of the rule making, but it is not necessary that your rule is going to be incorporated, or your vision or your philosophy, your interest is going to be taken on board. So more or less, the autonomy aspect of it to steer the AI technological development is going to be taking a back seat because the price you're paying is global access, right? So there is this argument that the governance of this is going to be externally determined rather than your national sovereign concerns, right? And there's also going to be huge compliance burden. Okay, your small and medium firms who wants to be an official part of this value chain, they have to have that certifications, and that might increase the compliance cost for small and medium firms. So will we be really getting the benefit by joining this alliance, or even if we get the benefits, are we losing out on our autonomy? So that is one of the big trade-off that we are going to be facing, right? So that's all about this issue. I hope you've got a good idea about it. So from a rule taker to a rule maker, that is the positive aspect of it. And it is trading temporary dependency for permanent capacity building. So, okay, we are trading our dependency. We are earlier we were dependent on China. Now there is going to be a new dependency, but it's a permanent dependency. But the argument, or you might lose out on certain autonomy part of it. But the argument is that in the long run, there is going to be a permanent capacity building. So that sums up your entire issue. Okay, these two lines are going to sum up your entire issue. Okay. So there's a question based on this. For India, Pax Silica is less a strategic choice and more a strategic necessity. Okay, so do you agree? So they are arguing that what are the benefits of joining it, and what are the what are the risks that are associated with it. The framing is in a slightly different manner. The core argument is the same thing, right? So if you are attempting this question, please send it to me on my mobile number or on my email ID. Looking forward for your responses. All the very best.